Hi, this is a short video in time-lapse, just recording the making up of a foam tool inserts that I did recently. So as you can see, first off you sort of start off laying out, trying out different layouts with the different tools that you've got here. So you see I've got a selection of Wera nut spinners and screwdrivers. First off, had to make sure that I cut the right length, so I'd realised that I hadn't actually cut the sheet to the right length. It was right the depth, but I needed to do the right length. Flip the sheet over to the orange side, which is the non-facing side, so that I didn't mark up the front. Using a T-square, obviously to make sure that it's square when it's cut, not assuming that the sheet was actually square from the manufacturer's. For manufacturer I used on this one was Shadowfoam. There's a US company, I think, called Kaizen foam as well. So once I'd cut it to the right length, it was actually square, so that was fine. I then created a border around the outside just using some car masking tape, because it's got a low tack adhesion, so it doesn't peel off any of the black foam when you want to remove it. So this sort of created about a 25mm border around the outside edge, so that you've got a sort of safety barrier with the tools not being too close to the edge. So it sort of ended up being a good way to make sure I didn't spill over into that. On a couple of occasions I did kind of go into that blue barrier, but only on a couple of the tools that you'll see later on the previous sheet that I did to this one. So trying different layouts with the screwdrivers, seeing which one sort of looks best, what's going to work best, which screwdrivers I use the most, which tend to be the posies, with things like the nut spinners used least. So I kind of wanted the ones that I used the most to be in the centre and at the front of the drawer as I opened it. But after sort of looking at this particular layout, I thought, yeah, it doesn't really work so well. So I started to look at this next one, where it's sort of lining them up by the tips along the bottom and then putting them into groups, create some kind of wave form effect. But to be honest, this also allowed for more room to put in other stuff later on. So there's a couple of extra tools that I've got to put in the top half, in the spaces that I've now created. But I've got the nut spinners on the left hand side, and I've got the torque drivers just to the right of those, and then it's the posies, then the Phillips, and then the flat nose screwdrivers on the right hand side. So they all worked pretty well. Just using a pen there to space them apart. The pen was about 10mm, so I just used the sort of widest points between any of the screwdrivers, depending on sort of going from large to small, that we've got a 10mm gap between each of the screwdrivers, so that it wasn't too thin that was going to then tear the foam. Just marking off the lower points. The screwdriver is a little bit more difficult to do because they've obviously got different depths. You've got the shaft, which is very shallow depth, and then you've got the main handle, which is quite deep. So what I decided to do here was mark the points at where the screwdrivers point down, so I had the datum point in case I ended up moving the screwdrivers during the draw round process. I've tried a couple of different methods, drawing around them, and also just using the scalpel straight around them. And to be honest, the more consistency kind of comes with the drawing round, but you do have to angle the hole specific marker pen that you can see that I'm using there. You sort of angle it in slightly so that you are not making too big a cutout for the tools. They're not sloppy, so they're sort of nice snug fit. So after drawing around them all, which you probably can't see on the video here, then start to cut in. Cutting in using a very shallow, very sharp scalpel. And initially you just sort of do about a 2 or 3mm cut in, just to mark out the initial line, and then you sort of go around it a couple of times more, increasing the depth as you go. But as you saw just then, I sort of measured the depth of the screwdriver against the scalpel to kind of see what the depth of that particular handle needed to go. Just over halfway is kind of how you want to gauge it, really. So on that particular screwdriver, as it's one of the large ones, I needed to go in by about 25mm. so sort of going up to the shank on the scalpel on that particular one. Next one, similar size screwdriver here. So again, I'm going right down to the shank on the scalpel. Actually, I think on this particular one I've swapped over to utilising the cardboard cutting knife, because if I keep using the scalpel then it's going to blunt it fairly quickly. So I'm using the scalpel for the initial cut, doing the shaping, and then using the box cutter to sort of gain the depth that I need to. And then, as you can see on the shafts of the screwdrivers themselves, I'm actually doing that last. So I'm just literally marking it and then peeling off the very, very top part of the Shadowfoam. So it is literally only about 3mm deep on the shaft. So the shaft just literally lays in and is sort of only halfway depth on the shaft itself. I think on this particular one I cut it too deep, so you'll probably see me about to put a bit of foam back in. There you go, because I cut it too deep. But that's the nice thing with this, is because it's in layers. This Shadowfoam is in so I think about 5 or 6 layers. So as you cut into it, it doesn't leave a too jaggedy bottom, and then you can actually use the offcuts to put back in there if you've found that you've cut too deep, which is quite a nice feature of this Shadowfoam. Yeah, so just keep going. It's a very laborious process, this. Just keep cutting around, but measuring each one time by time. So each of these particular ones that I'm doing, as I'm getting to the smaller screwdrivers, the holes are becoming less deep. Obviously, the larger ones have got a much deeper hole to them. So I think they vary from about 25mm on the large ones down to about 10mm on the little terminal drivers that I've got as well. So just checking that all of the handles are roughly the same height across the board, just using that steel rule. And then come into the last two. I think you'll see me fairly shortly. I'm going to make the finger pull. So I wanted to do one single finger pull on this. And the finger pulls you can do in 2 ways. You can either do the bar type finger pull that you'll see me do in a moment, or you can use the hot gun or the hot tamper, which they sell, to create sort of half circular finger pulls, which you'll see on a couple of the other inlays that I've done at the end of this video. I'll demonstrate some of the hot tamper finger pulls, but I'm now about to use a steel rule across the whole bunch of screwdrivers there to do the finger pull. Oh, maybe no, not quite yet. I think I'm gonna finish off doing the torque drivers yet, so I've got to try and think of something to talk about. Also, oh yeah, one thing I did find is trying to see the black on, so I think it was blue on black pen I was using here. So blue pen on the black background was quite difficult to see, so I just had to move the light so that I could see the pen easily, because I was casting shadow on myself there. So I just had to move the light over so I could easily see the pen marking. So I think on this I probably used about 1 scalpel per foam tray. By the time I was getting to the end of each foam tray, I was needing to use a new scalpel blade, because it was starting to get noticeably blunter, and I bought myself a box cutter. And what is quite helpful, you'll probably see me use a couple of times, is a small pair of thin nose pliers, but ones with an angled end to them, so then you can help to pull out some of the foam where you need it, where you need to sort of angle in. As you'll see, it's better to use your fingers to kind of squeeze your finger into one end and then pull it slowly up. Hence the reason my finger and thumb on my left hand are covered in blue, because that's from the blue marker pen that I've used to sort of outline the cutouts as I'm doing them. So again, you can see me just measuring up against the box cutter for the depth. How deep do I need to go on this particular one? One thing you will find using this Shadowfoam or kaizen foam is compared to the messy toolboxes that you've had before, whilst they will be lovely and quiet, you can't fit anywhere near as many tools in. So you might find that actually you have to do a little bit of rearranging on your toolbox, because you'll find that you're going to be putting a lot less tools into any one tool tray. So previously I had a mixture in one drawer, all the screwdrivers and nut spinners, and also all of my pliers and side cutters and things like that. But now with the foam inserts, they're spread over two. So here you see I can mark it across with the steel rule, the single finger pull, which is going to go all the way across. I made the finger pull slightly deeper than the cut for the shafts, so that you can actually get your fingers underneath the shaft as well. I think it looks quite good as well, having that long single bar going all the way across. Plenty of room up here for more stuff. And I've got to put a 10mm spinner in here. And then that one is full. I made a cutout for all of the ones that go on here. Spare set of jaws for that. And I did bar cutouts all the way along at the top there. With a few finger pulls, like that one. So that's those two done. I've still got, I've got to do that, and I've got to do that one, and I've got to do that one. I've got to rehome all of that lot, but I think I'll probably have to redo some of those, but these two do look really good now. They're nice and quiet.